Kia ora and welcome to another Aotearoa Rugby Pod. I'm Ross Carl here with James Parsons in Auckland. Bryn Hall also in Auckland, but on the big screen because he's working real hard. And we've got a special guest today coming all the way from over the Tasman, Will Genia. Thank you very much for joining us, Will. Of course, 100-test Wallaby.
Really grateful. Love what you guys are doing, so I'm really grateful to be part of the show today. Thank you.
Awesome. It's only going to get better. Are you safe, mate? We're hearing all these stories about stuff going on over the Tasman with COVID and there's lockdowns left, right and centre.
Pretty safe at the moment. I think it's pretty bad in New South Wales, and obviously it's been pretty bad in Melbourne, but I think in Brizzy we're pretty lucky that things aren't too bad. So enjoying my holiday from Japan, which has been quite nice as well.
So you're continuing to play up in Japan, are you?
Yeah, I've been there for 2 seasons, went there straight after the Rugby World Cup and got another one. Keen to do another 2 more years, and that'll probably be it. Hang them up.
You're 33 years young. There's still time to go, right?
Oh, plenty of time.
I'll see how I go.
I think Bryn's keen to tag on your contract once you want to hang it up. He's really pro-Japanese top league.
Mate, I'll tell you what, one thing I've always wanted to do is maybe come play over in New Zealand for a year or so. That'll be the dream when I finish.
Oh, mate, would love to have you here, mate.
The Blues or the Crusaders?
I'll come learn off you, mate, in that Crusader setup.
Oh, mate, I'll be learning off you, mate. So learning a few tricks, hopefully.
Good.
Obviously, as the panel know, I love Tony Brown, and so, mate, you're just going to jump on that wagon. I'll get right behind you so I can get a contract and earn some in over there.
Mate, I'll tell you what, it's a good lifestyle over there. It's obviously the footy's not the same as what it is back home, but really good people. The game's growing, and it's really good to be a part of that growth in rugby in Japan.
Yeah. And when you come over to play for North Harbour in the NPC, these guys are going to be pretty happy as well.
A nice little spot for you in Takapuna that you can live in, mate.
Yeah, so maybe similar to the hotel room that Bryn's apparently shacked up in on the Spencer on Byron, looking down over the beach.
Oh, living the high life.
Great coffee here. It's great coffee over here as well, Will, mate. If you love a coffee, Takapuna's a spot. Beach just down the road, so I know you like getting your kit off, and you look good as well. So, you're a big fan.
Mate, I'll tell you, mate. One of my favourite memories of footy in general is the World Cup in New Zealand. I love New Zealand. I've always enjoyed coming over there, and we were based in Auckland for a large part of that. So yeah, that might be a thing in the future.
Well,
that's bloody good.
That's great to hear.
News.
Breaking news. Will Genia coming to New Zealand.
Someone called
after 2 more years in Japan. Beauty.
Yeah, I'll be at 40 by the time I get there. Won't be anywhere.
Hey, well, if Jerome Kano can still win championships at age infinity or whatever he is in Toulouse,
how good is he?
There's no reason why not.
I think
he is a phenomenal player.
I think the guy that he hit in the game is still getting back up. I mean, he didn't miss. Oof. I literally texted him. I said, has that guy got back up yet? And he just sent cry faces back. So he knew he got him. And they all, you know how they're all going upstairs now for like those big shots if anyone stays down? Like, it was so legit, such a clean hit. He went out the way he came in. It was great to see.
Digby Ioane's still recovering from that 2011 Rugby World Cup. When he get on the semi-final, when he get dragged back from over the try line.
Manhandled.
Did you ever put him down?
He's a phenomenal player.
Yeah, legend. We'll get onto that game a little bit later on. Well, let's start off with you guys over the Tasman. It's come to Brizzy, the game, has it?
Rugby Australia's had to adapt. I think we're pretty fortunate that the tour itself is going ahead and the French are here. We're going to get some Test rugby. Which is something that we're all craving. So I guess it's been amazing that the game has been able to adapt, and we've moved the Test to Brisbane so that we can go ahead with it. And yeah, mate, it's in my backyard, so I might head out there and see how the boys go.
No DuPont though. That's a big talking point. Obviously, you two blokes have probably got a take on that. What is this French side going to be like without DuPont and Intermac?
Yeah, I think, again, we've talked about him a lot on this podcast, and probably Will can chip on around this as well. But yeah, having that kind of player who, I guess, is, you'd probably say arguably probably the best halfback in the world, but maybe Aaron Smith. So, with his running threat and his ability to be in big moments to be able to influence on the game, it's definitely going to be a loss for them. But again, it opens up another opportunity for other players. And I guess, Will, the question that I wanted to ask you, bro, you can answer that around DuPont, but I guess what are the expectations of the Aussie squad? I think you obviously had Dave Rennie here for a year and been able to implement a few things, but there's the expectation for the Wallabies to win that series and to have a bit of confidence going into that rugby championship.
Yeah, I think for the Wallabies, you think about the French season's been so long, and a lot of their players, by the time this time of year comes around, they're pretty exhausted mentally and physically. So I think for us as the Aussie team, we're coming into this series fresh off the back in the middle of our season, right smack bang in the middle. So where everyone's hungry for Test rugby, everybody's looking forward to it. And obviously the French haven't been able to get all their top players down here for the series. So I think it's only if we didn't get a result in terms of winning the series, but I know that the guys are hungry and really looking forward to getting stuck in.
It's sort of a win-win for the French side. Like, haven't got their big stars down here, so you used to speak about obviously in the middle of the season for the Wallabies, and they're hungry to get into it. But because there's so many opportunities in this squad for the French, they're going to be hungry. There's going to be a lot of excitement and energy in that camp as well, and through that opportunity. And a lot of those players have come through that under-20s environment that sort of fought quite hard against Australia through that same period. The Aussie under-20s and the French under-20s, and they both had a lot of success, and obviously the French under-20s winning 18 and 19. And I just feel that our expectation was a full squad to come down and probably had them at favourites, whereas this brings them in as the underdogs and the sort of unknown and the unexpected, and then to look at where they want to get to for 2023 and the depth it can potentially create for them. I mean, I don't see this tour being a losing situation for them. I feel like it's a real win-win for the French and a win-win for potentially the Wallabies, building some confidence, getting their group together and sort of like what Bryn mentioned, getting off to a good start second year with Dave Rennie.
Where do we end up at halfback, Will, when you look at what the Aussies have got? If Nick White's not available, Jake Gordon is here walking at that 9 jersey?
Well, I think firstly, I'd say Nick White is comfortably the best halfback in Australia. I think if you look at when he plays for the Wallabies and for the Brumbies, both teams are a much better side when he's on there. Just his ability to make the right decisions under pressure and just contribute in terms of his physical abilities, his running game, his passing game, his kicking game. I think Jake's injured. Jake did his MCL just in the last game of the Super Rugby Trans-Tasman. So I think he's touch and go for that first test. But I'd have to say if Jake was right, I would have gone with Jake with Whitey being injured. But you wouldn't. I don't think you'd want to chuck him in straight into that first test coming off the back of injury. I think Tate McDermott's been he's been excellent. I think throughout all the Super Rugby AU and Super Rugby Trans-Tasman. So you'd want to give him an opportunity to continue to build on that momentum and build on that confidence. And then obviously you've got Ryan Lonergan, who's still pretty green. I think he's only had a handful of starts for the Brumbies. So, moving into the test, I'd probably go with a Tate McDermott, give him the opportunity to play off the confidence that he's built throughout the Super Rugby season. And hopefully Jake and Whitey come back at some point, whether that be for the Rugby Championship or the back end of this series.
There's potentially going to be Noah Lolosio at 10 as well. There's a bit of injury cloud around Tamua and O'Connor. We speak about the youth and excitement of the French. I think this is a prime opportunity for two young guys to start a combination, that and Tate McDermott, that which you touched on, and Lonergan when he comes on, if that's the way they go. But also Lolosio obviously had a massive sort of imprint in Super Rugby, and then Test match rugby was quite intense for them last year. Do you see this as a big opportunity for him to get his confidence at this level?
I love the fact that through injury they're forced to play big minutes now, because a lot of the times when they're coming off the bench, as young players, you tend to rely on the senior players, particularly in that Test match environment. You think to yourself, it's fine if I make a mistake because I'm only on the bench, or next week someone else is going to start, or the senior player is going to start. You sort of can have that mindset. So I think the fact that they're forced into the fact that they have to start and they're going to have to play big minutes and take control of the team, I think it's an opportunity for them to build themselves into Test match rugby, see if they can mix it at this level, and then obviously understand the things they need to work on to get better and to grow into being good Test match players.
There's a few injuries around the inside backs and Lolosio, and we talked about Nick White in that. I'd like to hear your opinion on your midfield pairings. Obviously, Matt Tamua was great around being that 12 and that kind of decision maker and great communicator and ball skills. And I guess with him under an injury cloud as well, you've got Isaiah Parisi, who was fantastic at Super Rugby level with that Trans-Tasman. We talked about him a lot. And then you've got obviously Hunter Paisami as their 12, who was in that Rugby Championship last year. Do you feel they need that kind of balance around having a ball carrying midfielder as well as a person a player like Tamua that can complement them really well? Or do you reckon they just go with Hunter and Isaiah?
I like the idea. Like the perfect balance is having Matty Tamua at 12, because he is that ball carrying presence. He's a big body. Physically, he's a good defender as well, but he has the ability to play make. And I think Hunter Paisami is probably a very like-for-like swap in that he is very physical. He runs good lines. He's a physical presence in defense, and he can throw a good pass. He's obviously got to grow into that a little bit more, I think, at test level, because you don't have the same time and space, and it's at a different level of intensity. But I think there is an injury cloud around Matty and James O'Connor, so I'd like the idea of Paisami at 12, and then you'd have to go on form and performance. I think Parisi's been outstanding at 13. Just his ability to break the line, the ability to create second phase play with the offload, and I think the one thing that we've years gone by is just physical presence. And I think if you have those two in the midfield, it gives you punch, but also gives the ability to get the ball to the edges to guys like Marika and Tom Banks in space.
Do you think, though, because I was going to ask about the midfield as well, that it might be a safer option to go with guys that know each other? And Dave Rennie's spoken at length about Foketi being a big part of Parisi's success at 12, the fact that he is a player that can run that hard line, but he also likes to set his outsides up. And maybe because there is a late change around that first 5 and there's a bit of youth and enthusiasm at 9 and 10, I suppose a cohesive combination at 12 and 13 that knows each other, played a lot of minutes already this year, could work as well. Nothing against Paisami, because I think he was a big factor as why Queensland sort of didn't get on that run to win that Super Rugby AU, but just maybe that combination and knowing each other a bit more.
Yeah, look, I think the thing with combinations is you can build that those combinations and build a sense of comfort through the weeks of preparation and training leading into the test matches. And I think the other thing is someone like Parisi, who's coming in, who hasn't played, I'm pretty sure he hasn't played test match footy or played big games like that. He'll find comfort in the fact that someone like Hunter is essentially the incumbent number 12.
Yeah.
I think that probably gives you a little bit more comfort and confidence, more so than, say, if you put Foketi in, who hasn't played any test match rugby and it was sort of a bit of a bolter in the squad. I think he probably finds a little bit more confidence having a little bit more experience inside him.
When I hear you talking about the Wallabies, I feel quite similar to the way I think about the All Blacks now going into a test match. Like if you think, say, pre-2015, you knew exactly which All Blacks team was going on the field. We now head into this season in a similar way where there's a lot of conversation about who's what, why and where, you know?
I think it's even the same for the loose forwards. Like I think Hooper, obviously being the skipper, he goes in at 7. Harry Wilson's probably dominated at 8, but Naisarari Rani went really well towards the end. Valentini, I thought he was great. When in the finals period and backed it up against the Kiwi sides at 6. They've used Rennie's used him off the bench, but I think he's pushing hard for a 6th spot. You got Wells, you got Leota, you got Swinton, who I know he might be under red card stuff there, but like there's so many, like it's hard to pick that loose forward trio exactly to what you're saying, and I think that sets them up so well. Like whatever results in Super Rugby, it shows that the depth is actually building quite strongly in that Wallabies side.
Then at some point you've just got to make that decision, right, Bryn? Who are we going with here and how long are we backing them?
Yeah, I think it is. And I think, look, we've talked about Harry Wilson a lot in this podcast around his performances, not only in Trans-Tasman as well, and his ability to be able to, we've talked around him being a physical ball carrier, a defence presence, and then obviously his ability to put the ball away through his skill set as well with his passing. So I think him and Hooper will be probably the 2 loose forwards that will be picked based on their form, and obviously Hooper being captain and his experience. But yeah, I think depending on who else they go with, it'll be interesting, because I think we've talked a lot as well, having the ability to have an 8 who can play off the back of a scrum is Matt Hoskins to Tutu Akira. We've talked about a lot in Trans-Tasman and New Zealand, the All Blacks, of how much weapon that has. So if you can have the ability to do that, we know as a 9 ball how hard that is to defend when you've got an 8 that can play off the back of a scrum. So there is a lot of depth, and like you said, Jip, the ability to have, the Australian teams didn't collectively play well against New Zealand teams, but there have been enough players that have played individually well where they have actually been a useful trio.
As the Crusaders, which players coming off the back of the scrum did you guys worry the most about during the Trans-Tasman comp?
Naisarani does that as well, and Harry Wilson's got the skill set to do it as well. We've talked around Harry with his ability to be able to play with ball in hand, so, and he is quite deceptively quick for a big man. He does look big, and you think he's not too quick, but he's deceptively quick. So he's got the skill set to be able to do that, exactly because he can pass as well, he can run, and he's a destructive ball carrier as well.
Actually, let's go for your view maybe on what's going on over this side of the Tasman, Will. You know, when you look at that, we talk a lot about the loose forward trio and how we're going to set up this loose forward trio. If you were looking at the current All Black loose forward trio, where would you go and why?
I like the idea of having an 8 who's an out-and-out 8. You practice and you play at that position when you week in, week out. And I love Hoskins as a player. I think his ability, as Bryn was saying, to be able to sit defenders down because it comes so natural to him to be able to break off the scrum left or right. I know as a defending halfback, when you have an 8 that's very good at that, like having played against someone like Kieran Reid, it's so difficult to defend because you've got the ability to break off the scrum quickly and also use your skills to be able to put players into space, whether it's on the short side or the open side. And then, you know, look, you've obviously got someone like Ardie Savea. I'm a big fan of Akira. I think he has all the attributes to be world class. His ability to beat defenders and to be physical and to get sort of stuck in with the ruck because he's such a big presence on the field. I think you guys are pretty sport for back rowers. But they're probably the 3 that stick out for me in terms of, you know, specifically chatting about the back row.
Jim's going to invite you back.
Oh, so just checking there, you had Akira at 6, you had Hoskins at 8, and could we get Papali'i at 7?
Yeah, mate. Well, mate, the Blues they've been playing well. I like Ardie at 7. I think I'd like to see him at 7. He covers all bases, mate. He's an absolute freak of a talent.
Yeah.
2 out of 3 is not
2 out
bad.
of 3. You'll take that. You'll put Dalton on the bench. And, you know, you're mostly happy, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm wrapped with that, coming from a man of his experience.
Actually, I saw a photo of you on Instagram over the weekend. You were receiving an award at the Blues Awards. How was that evening?
Oh, yeah, it was good. It was just a little farewell gift, so end of an era. It was a good night. It was a good night celebrating the players. I think nights like that are about the award winners and the lads that have done the work during the year, but it was nice to be acknowledged.
Nice. Was it a bit of a speech?
A little bit, yeah. A few thank yous. Yeah. Too many to probably go through, but got there in the end.
Oh, bloody good. It was good to see, you know, the acknowledgement of a player like you put so much into that club that you know.
Yeah, no, they did it very well. They did it very well. It was good for myself, but also my family. Appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, maximum respect from us to you as well, because I mean that's.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, good on you, mate.
Massive.
Hey, cheers, Brenner.
Yeah, well done, mate.
On you, mate.
Let's move on to more. We've got a bit more All Blacks chat on the cards. We haven't found out much about what's going on this weekend. Bryn, what do you expect? Do you expect we'll see a top 15 this weekend? Do you expect a mixture? What direction do you think they'll go?
I think there'll be the tried and true that they do have, but then they'll be mixed in with a bit of youth, and so traditionally the All Blacks do that in the first Test match. They tend to go with the tried and true with players that have played well, and then they might have a little sprinkle of a few players. You know, that loose forward trio which we've talked about will be interesting to see if they give guys opportunities. You know, like we've talked about, you talked about Akira, Dalton, Hoskins, but you know, a guy like Ethan Blackadder who's played well this year, whether he wants to have a start or he comes off the bench, and Luke Jacobson as well, who's been great for coming back from injury from last year. He's had a tremendous season for the Chiefs. So the loose forward trio is going to be really good, and then obviously David Havili probably going to be at 12 as well through injuries. But I think also warranted on performance, and you know probably his combination with Rico will be one of an interest if that's the 2 that are selected in those 2 positions.
Is it David Havili? It's what we're all waiting for, isn't it? We just want to see him there.
Yeah, I think he will be there. I think he's earned the right. I think it's exciting for where they're going in the midfield, but he's earned the right to be there first and foremost. And like Bryn said, his combination with Reeks and linking up with Richie will be, you know, if it's off the back of a good platform. But I'll be interested to see if they go for an out-and-out form 23 and they just pick on form, or potentially are there a few banged up bodies from the final, a few guys that enjoyed that win, and potentially guys that weren't a part of that, getting the first opportunity, and then holding a few of them off, because I think loading is massive. Like 15 tests are planned for this year, so I don't think they'll just rush to just throw their best 23 out there. I think there'll be a mix and match of a little bit of a touch of new blood, but then there'll also be a lot of experience in and around it. But getting that balance right, because as I say, there's a massive year ahead of this All Blacks side.
Well, 15 test matches in a year. Can you give us an impression of exactly how hard that is on the body? Because that is a lot of test matches.
Mate, it's a lot. It's I tell you, because it's interesting, because like everybody asks you what the difference is between Test match rugby and Super Rugby. Obviously, Super Rugby is of an incredibly high standard, but I think where you find the difference is you have less room for error, which means you get punished more in terms of making mistakes. And just the level of intensity and the speed of the game and the level of contact, just the intensity around that, I think it sort of weighs on you. And 15 tests is a lot of rugby. You know, being sort of out of Test match rugby now, thinking about playing like 5 tests in a row, it hurts me. It hurts my body. So it's I think to your point there, James, I think you're right. Like they're going to have to sort of manage certain guys who have had big workloads throughout the Super Rugby seasons. And then again, to your point, Bryn, I think I'd probably see what I see them doing is probably picking some of the tried and true performers, because a lot of the times in those teams, the game runs around like your 9s, your 10s, your 15s, and obviously your captain and say like a back row or something. You pick those guys, and then you pick other guys around them to give them the experience and give them an opportunity, and then you sort of mix and match probably over the 3 tests that you guys have got in June, July.
So I think we're obviously going to see Richie first up. But does that mean that, you know, maybe week 2 or 3 we get Bowden back at 10?
Or he might be on the bench this weekend. I suppose there's Damien there as well, who sort of went between the two really well. 9's another interesting one. With Folau's injury at the Highlanders, there's a lot of load on Nuggie. So potentially giving Brad Weber some good minutes and maybe a debut for Finlay Christie. So that whole management of that 9-10 area will be interesting, and it's hard to know where they'll go, because Geordie obviously can slip up into first receiver as well, and probably expecting to see him in the 15 jersey.
It's just that I feel like Richie deserves time, like a few tests in a row, please, for Richie.
Yeah, well, I think so. Like, as a 9, as a 10, you want to be playing as much as you can. But I think, and there's probably these first 3 test matches with Bodie being back in the squad. Bodie's going to get his opportunity. So it's not just Bodie; it's other guys in the squad. We're pretty fortunate. And there's no disrespect to the opposition that the All Blacks are playing, but there are going to be opportunities for guys to be able to play. So yes, ideally, Richie as a player would love to have those 3 test matches in a row, and look, they could go down that route with him playing that. But I probably see Bodie getting an opportunity as well, along with the other players in the squad as well. So. But we have talked about it a lot in this podcast around Richie having a couple of years in the All Black environment, and I think this year is a really important year for him for his growth. He's been the last 3-4 years been a vital part in the Crusaders' wheel and the cog in the wheel. So he's played fantastic at that, and he's been the best in Super Rugby. But now I think it's time for him to really step that up. And from the comms we've had from him the whole year, I think he's really going to embrace the challenge of having Bodie in the squad. But I think first and foremost for himself as a 10 as well, to be able to try and take that form he has in Super Rugby into international, which we all want as Kiwis.
Well, from an Aussie perspective, and you look at those two, what do you think?
Mate, I think the point that Bryn's making is a big one, because obviously Richie's been the best player in Super Rugby for the last 3-4 years. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's head and shoulders above everybody, well and truly. But I don't, and this is just my opinion, I don't think he's probably had that. He's carried entirely all that form over into the Test match arena. Whereas, you look at someone like Beauden Barrett, like when he was in that role, when they said to him, "You're running the team, you've got the keys to the team, and you're the number 10." He was World Player of the Year, I think, maybe 2 years in a row, nominated for a third. It's from a preferential perspective, I like Beauden at 10, having played against him at 10. I just think his ability as a ball runner at that next level to be able to beat that first defender and use his speed, use his strength. A lot of the times that gets him out of trouble when the team is in trouble, but he's also obviously then got exceptional skills as well. And he just seems like a more, I'm not too sure how to say it. I think he's more suited to 10 than he is playing 15. He has more of an impact and more of an influence on the game starting at 10 than he does at 15. And for me, like a player like him, again, having played against him, it was so hard to defend against him at 10, because you've got the run threat, the kick threat, the pass threat, and it's incredibly hard to defend against.
But you have 2 guys who play very different styles, right? You've got a guy who plays flat to the line and a guy who plays kind of deep a lot of the time behind the pod. Did the All Blacks need to switch their styles up depending on who's at 10, Jipper?
No, I think teams these days have got the ability to go between that, and basically your 10's your general. So even if forwards are there and you want the ball, you'll get it. So it's just on the 10 to run the cutter the way he sees fit. And I think the one thing from a forward's point of view, if you just told what's needed of you, you'll do it. And especially at that level, the biggest focus is just you got to nail your role, be consistent in your role, and that will create opportunities for guys like Richie and Bowden if you're consistent in your running lines, in your setup, and your tempo to clean rucks, and all those little things add up to opportunities for those guys to exploit.
The other guy's back, Brodie Retallick. How fizzed are you to possibly see Brodie Retallick back in black and everything that he brings to that side with his mongrel, etc.?
Yeah, look, it's exciting to see him back, and I think it's exciting the way he's talking. He's like, a few people have said things about me, but I feel in career best shape, which is, he's been World Rugby Player of the Year, and which is not easy to do in a lock position. So I think it's an exciting year for him as an individual, but for us as viewers to see where he can take his game, because, there's the brutality of it, but he's got a lot of finesse to his game. And I think seeing him and Sam back together, him and Paddy, or whoever it may be, him and Scott, is exciting for us, but it's also great for that. Like, you had to pick Tupou Vai, and there's 5 locks there, but it's like you can't leave one of them out, which is exciting in terms of the depth and what we can demand, because we know that so many tries are scored off the back of lineouts these days. Like, it's the biggest source of tries pretty much out of anything. So if it's not a maul, it's enough to suck defence in, so you can do a crossfield kick or you run a little backs play. So having 5 genuine lineout leaders in your environment and adding someone like Brodie back into that environment is just exciting for the group, but for us as viewers as well.
Bryn, can you describe as a halfback why that ball off the back of the line out is the best attacking ball out? Why do teams constantly go for that?
Are you referring to just like the drive, or actually the plays off the drive?
The plays off the drive, or the ball just coming down from the back of the line out into the halfback's hand and out to be played?
I just think it's massive. I think especially if you're talking around a maul strikes, if you look at on the weekend when we played for the Māoris, we scored a try off the kind of transition phase because we went to set piece 3 or 4 times trying to drive and take their legs out. So, if you've got a really good drive within your set piece, it opens up for avenues like the Highlanders did this year with scoring tries down the front or around the back. Or then again, if you're winning back ball off the top of the line out, it holds the defences and you've got a better attacking as a back unit. So I think it's massive, especially probably in the maul stages at the moment. A lot of teams are going inside the 22, going for drives, trying to score tries. You look at Ash Dixon, he scored a try on the weekend, and hookers seem to be scoring 7-8 tries where probably that wasn't happening back in the day. So the forward play and the line-outs has been massive. So if you can win parity there, it sets up your game massively.
I think it's the win to the game, the race to the game line. If you win that back ball, you can't win that race. Like, if it's front middle, defensive line, as soon as it's off the top, you can go. And basically it means the halfback's pass is in the air for a longer period of time. Whereas if it's at the back, it's almost, you can't creep, you can't cheat, it's off the top and boom, it's in the first receiver's hands, or it's in a 12 crash line and they're already over the gain line before you've even made your first 5 steps. So that's the biggest advantage, I feel, is defensively you just can't win that race. You're disadvantaged if it's off the tail because, one, the ref's looking at the tail, so you can't break that 15 if you're the tail gunner, and also you can't break that 10 because they're so well aware that you should lose that race. And if you do win that race, they're probably going to look at it and go, well, you're probably creeping a little bit.
Yeah. The thought on that is the same across the Tasman?
Yeah, mate, exactly. I think the thing about the say winning the ball at the back of the line out and playing that off the top, essentially you get the halfback on the run. So the ball moves a little bit quicker into the first receiver's hands. And you essentially isolate, you get one-on-one opportunities with just the backs. If you win the ball at the front or the middle, you've got essentially like half or 3/4 of the line out who race out and work as cover defenders on the inside. So you're not getting those one-on-one matchups. And then, again, off the maul, if you can get going forward, again, the ability to isolate and manipulate the defense, whether it's through the front peels or the back peels, create the extra numbers and find space. Yeah, I think that the best teams in the world are the Crusaders. They're so good because obviously they've got skillful players all across the park, but their set piece is just absolutely dominant.
That's something the Brumbies have done really well, possibly up until this year, and have been a good base for the Aussie pack, right, with that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's been a huge strength of theirs. I think, unfortunately, in my time, having been a part of the Wallaby setup, we probably weren't able to transfer a lot of that dominance into the Wallaby play. But I think with this particular generation coming through, and guys like Taniela Tupou, Luka Salakaia-Loto from the Reds, players of that sort of quality, you can really see that if we can get our set piece right and have that physical presence in that area in the test matches, we've got plenty of ability to be able to play off the back of that, and plenty of ability to score tries and, hopefully win big test matches against the All Blacks.
I suppose that's the big conversation, right? Even though Trans-Tasman was lopsided, there's a 23 there for you guys.
Mate, that's exactly right. You look at so New Zealand are obviously very fortunate that you guys have such good quality players all across the park. You've got such depth in your squads, hence why all your teams are so very good. We might not have that same quality of depth, but we do have the 23 to 25 players who are of a very high standard, who once we put together will be a competitive outfit. I think it's just more a case of having time within Rennie's system and building confidence through experience of time at that test match level. Because we've got a lot of players who have played 20, 30 test matches who are still 23, 24 years old, who are only going to come into, you could say, their prime around 25, 26. And I'm probably speaking more around the forward pack. So once we can get more experience into those guys, have more, and through that get more confidence to be able to express themselves at test level and go out and actually try to dominate. I honestly think Australian rugby, particularly in the forwards, is in a really good position moving forward, particularly towards that World Cup.
For creating depth, I just want to get your thoughts on Super Rugby. You've won a Super Rugby title. We played South Africa, you've played Kiwi sides. How important do you think it is for the growth of the Australian super clubs to keep connected to New Zealand teams and playing those crossover games rather than isolating themselves in their own conference?
Mate, I think it's huge. I think I like the idea of both, having the Super Rugby AU and then the Trans-Tasman, because to start off with, obviously, to appeal to the kids here in Australia, they want to see teams winning, right? You want to see teams winning trophies. You want to see teams winning consistently, because no one's going to support teams that are, getting put 60 points on every week. So I like the idea of Super Rugby AU, but then I think there has to be a Super Rugby Trans-Tasman, because we're never going to get better unless we test ourselves against the best. Yes, we got pretty touched up in the Trans-Tasman this year, but it just goes to show where we need to be better, where we need to continue to grow. If we just isolate ourselves, we're never going to get better. And I honestly firmly believe that. We need to be playing the New Zealand teams in order to, as a gauge to see where we need to improve.
Bryn, you feel the same as a current player, and I know I certainly did, but it's key to have the different styles to play against, isn't it?
I think it is, mate, and I think, we've talked about it a lot around Super Rugby Aotearoa, it's just not sustainable for us as players. Look, it's a tough competition, and if we're playing two full series, it's pretty hard on our bodies. And look, we've had a lot of injuries throughout those periods of players where there have been serious injuries. We had Scott Barrett last year who was injured, and we've had Jack Goodhue, for example, and many other players in New Zealand competitions get injured just through the tough nature of that competition. So I think we do need to still play each other, because again, we do like that. It is great for our fans, and the consumers love the Kiwi derbies, which would be exactly the same in Australia. But I think it's very important for us to play against Australian teams. Again, we've talked about the touring aspect as well. It's it's great to be able to tour and go and to experience different things, not only as a rugby player, but the young guys coming through experiencing a different country and different hostile environments. I look at Brisbane when we went into Brisbane, and yet we got the result. But playing in quarters like that and in occasions like that, it's a little bit different. Playing the Reds in Christchurch, it's just a different experience you need to experience, and we love doing it as players. So I think for the growth of playing the Australian teams, we need to see different styles, and we enjoyed that. We enjoyed that this year, playing against different styles and not just playing the same New Zealand teams, same style. Because traditionally the New Zealand teams play similarly the same. There's little alters in attack and defence that the New Zealand teams have, but playing the Australian teams, it was a breath of fresh air, and we actually got to play a different style of rugby and test our skills at doing different things than we would in New Zealand rugby.
It's the same sentiment for bringing Will Genia into the Aotearoa Rugby Pod, really. It's lifted our game.
It has put us on edge.
Yeah. Making us be the best people we can possibly be.
Yeah.
100%. So, Will, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate you coming on board.
I really appreciate it. Love what you guys are doing, so thank you so much.
Right, well, guys, that was bloody good. Will Genia, legend of the game, legend of the Aotearoa Rugby Pod.
Pumping, mate, just talking to him.
A hero of yours?
God, man. Oh, what's that?
A hero of yours?
Oh, massively. Massively. Huge. He's probably my, bar Furu de Prayer from South Africa. He's my, growing up.
Excellent, excellent. What about that drop goal from Cheslin Colby from 50 metres out?
Oh, he certainly sent a message, I suppose, to the Lions as well, didn't he? Like, that's we all know that he can run the ball and he can defend. He's a power defender, but man, I didn't expect that, and that distance wasn't at altitude either.
Yeah.
It was cleanly hit.
Yeah, put him at 60 metres at altitude, and anything could happen.
But I mean, it could come to something like that. Like, it was a pretty slick operation. I know we'll get to the Lions game later on, but they looked a slick outfit too. So it's setting up for, when guys like that are in current form going into that South African environment, it's exciting.
Why don't we just jump straight into the Lions then? We've seen a bit of a drama with injury to Alan Wynne-Jones. What's the go-to as far as leadership?
Oh, look, they've gone to Conor Murray as the skip, but they'll have a leadership group. They've got Owen Farrell there, Itoji, Hoggs, a captain. There's enough experience and leaders, and I actually like the way Conor Murray played on the weekend. He sort of wound back the clock. Sometimes a little bit too deep, Bryn, on his box kicks. I shouldn't be really coaching that, being a hooker. But yeah, they weren't really contestables. Which would be the only point of concern. But he really controlled things well for Josh Adams' try, used the forwards well and then switched back, used the blind well. Courtney Laws scored one in the second half, which was disallowed because he knocks on, but the exact same players, he's really busy and looking and then switched back blind, and Courtney Laws, knocked it on but was over the line. So a lot of his running game, kicking game balance and that sort of, we talk about DuPont and being a general, a lot of their kicking game and a lot of their structure came off him. So I think he's in a perfect position, clearly, in the role he plays in that team to be leading that side.
What do you make of it, Bryn?
Yeah, I think those points are all valid, and I think, look, it's devastating for Alan Wynne-Jones, who again has put so much in order to the Lions rugby, obviously Welsh rugby, and fingers crossed he can. I think Ryan was talking about it that he might. I don't know if there's actually a call on it, but from what I heard a couple of days ago, is he might be ready for that first test at best. But yeah, you've almost got to prepare without him, and Tipuric obviously injured. But no, I think Conor Murray, they're going to, the way they played on the weekend, it's pretty clear that's going to be the plan that's going to be implemented, probably. They did it when they were here in 2017 with Conor Murray being massive contestables, and look, yeah, they'll get those contestables right where they actually will be able to have their winners going up in the air. But the worst case scenario is that they're within position just to make the tackle, and so they can't counter attack off it. And look, he'll get better at that, and they'll implement that better moving forward. But 35 kicks to Japan's 21. So obviously Japan wanted to play, and you saw the high tempo that they wanted to play. But I thought defensively, in that first half, that Lions team defended really, really well. Japan threw a lot of them. They won the territory and the position battle with the amount of ball that they did have in place. So I think they got what they needed out of that. And traditionally, the Lions are great defensively, and as they are in the Northern Hemisphere, they have a lot of interest in how they defend and have a lot of they talk about that and defend that a lot. So it was a good start for them. And then obviously Conor Murray, his leadership will be great. And he's got guys like Owen Farrell, who's captain England, obviously Itoji there as well, and Hogg, and other players that have a bit of experience in them as well.
I think you just touched on it there around their defence. Like in that first half, they really left the rucks alone. They didn't put too many hunters in, and they had 14, sometimes the tacklers getting onto his feet, 15 men on their feet, and they operated that real rush D. I thought Henshaw was the player of the day for me. Like defensively, he was massive. He got up, he got an intercept one just before Van der Merwe's try when he picked down the blind side, but that was on the base of defensive pressure and getting a turnover from an intercept. He put on some great shots, but also, more importantly, he did almost like, I don't know if you remember it, Malakai Fekitoa was really good at it. He'd shoot out at 13, show face to the first five, and almost put it in the first five's vision, and they almost go to pass it, and they're like, oh, no, and then they tuck and go, so it pushes them back into where his big bodies were. So he was massive on that and really clean in attack. He used really good feet before Josh Adams' try, and I think then in the second half there were 2 or 3 going for the turnover, and that's when they got broken on the edge and probably could have been scored against in the 76th minute if the crossfield kick had been a little bit more accurate. So a couple of times they maybe got a little bit too tight late, because they had to absorb a lot of pressure. Japan had a lot of ball in that second 40, and they defended, don't get me wrong, even when they were broken on the edge, the pleasing thing is they bought into the rush D, but also once the ball had gone, they busted ass to get back and make that tackle. And when Himeno was held up, I think around the 70th minute mark, that was a huge effort, because they were done there and they busted back and obviously held them up. So their defensive system's massive, but it does rely on guys making really good decisions around that breakdown. And I thought one guy that did extremely well was Courtney Laws. I was really impressed. I thought he put in a massive shift. And so we talk about Alan Wynne-Jones, potentially, being out of the tour. A guy like him stepping up like that on first game, gives you comfort, I think, when you've got a Toji and co to still come. So there was a lot to like. And then on the attacking side, I really like their forwards interplay, Bryn. I don't know if you saw it, but a lot of tips, a lot of inside balls, not just, off the run carrying. And then their Burns try, their whole running off 10. It was a pretty slick performance for a first up game, and Japan threw everything at them. So it was great viewing. The only thing I was a little bit confused, I don't know if you guys were, but why Japan were going for the threes at 28-7 and the 64th minute and the 67th minute. I sort of thought they might want to go for the corner and play catch up, but
it's just setting a base for the comeback.
Yeah, setting a base. But other than that, I thought there was a lot to like and a lot to, I suppose, pull apart for the South African side.
A little bit closer to home.
Yeah.
You obviously played in a big game on the weekend, Bryn, the Māori versus Samoa, 35-10 win down in Wellington. No one in the stands. A little bit odd to watch, a little bit odd to play in.
Yeah, like if I'm being honest, it was tough. Like, again, we're players that want to play in front of people, and we haven't played in Wellington in a long. Well, it's been, I think, like 1990s was the last time we played in Wellington for the Maori All Blacks. So we're a little bit disappointed around that, and obviously COVID was floating around early start of the week. So it was an interesting week. It was a different week for us, but the great thing about our group and understand is that anytime you get to put on the Māori's jersey, it's an honour, and the boys really enjoy putting that jersey on and representing our people. So it was tough, but I think for us it was terrible conditions as well. Like, it was, seriously one of the worst games I've played in wind-wise down at the Cape Town. So it was just massively around our set piece. We did a lot of line-out drives and got parity through that way, and then our kicking game was pretty good around OT, and even Trasky and Schroeder and our box kicks as well really suffocated them. So overall we were just happy to get the job done. I think we left a little bit out there, and it's been a massive motivating factor for us that we know that the All Blacks are playing before us, are playing after us, and it's going to be a double header in Mount Smart, which is a massive Pacifica culture and Polynesian people with Māori people there as well. So for us, we're looking forward to having an opportunity to rectify a few things and to get back to kind of playing running rugby, which is the main thing for Māori rugby, which we're looking forward to do this week.
Alex Nankivell, I thought, was huge. He was key turnover for Shooter's second try. Gave a great offload for Sean Wainui's second try. We sat on here and spoke about Quintapaya, and we've spoken about the Chiefs and how Nankivell stepped up. But another big performance at the next level. I thought he was massive. Also, he gave that great ball before Shooter's first try, before Trask put the grubber through. I don't know, like his all-round performance, it looked like he really took his opportunity.
Yeah, Nank's been massive, and I think it's just been a flow-on effect from his performances in that Trans-Tasman competition. And look, I think every time he's played for the Māoris, he's played great. I think we look back a couple of years ago, he came off the bench against Fiji and was massive around impact around that. And then the next week had a man of the match performance against Fiji in Rotorua. So if you're talking about guys at the next level, and obviously with Braden Enroll being injured as well, we've talked about Leicester. But I think the fortunate thing for Nank has been able to play international rugby, being a part of the Maori All Blacks, and so his subtle touches, especially in the wet, was massive for us. Around the edge, a lot of times he fixed defenders, giving our guys like Trasky, Shooter and Shawnee, giving them the ball time and space, which was pretty crucial for a guy at number 12. So and then defensively as well, he pretty much brought up our line speed, getting guys, the Samoan boys, turning them in. especially in wet conditions. He put them under a lot of pressure. So overall, he had a massive game for us. He was great for us and performed really, really well. And again, if he gets the opportunity on the weekend, he's just going to keep stomping on that door. Again, there could be injuries, and performances like that against international teams, it's going to set him well moving forward.
Can we touch on Samoa quickly, because I think they fronted up quite well. They'd only been together for a short space of time. I know you lads as well, but I thought that there was a good set piece battle in that first 40. They fell away obviously towards that scrum dominance that you guys had towards the end, but a lot of their interplay and their structure, they bashed away at your guys' line towards the end. Fumai did a great read. Your pendulum hadn't come across, and he scored that try. They got that quick ball. That try was disallowed where they made you tackle, which left no one in the boot.
Yep.
And the full. There was just a lot to their game that I thought in those conditions that they performed really well.
Yeah, they did, mate. They actually were a lot better around their lightning quick ball. They were at 68% ruck speed and we were at 56%. So, physically, they were actually really good around there, posing a lot of questions for us around their attack. And, traditionally they're big physical men. And like you said, there were a couple of ball carrying opportunities where they got in behind us and really posed us a lot of questions. And to be honest, I thought in that first half they did really well around switching back to the blind side in the wet. Again, they probably didn't want to kick because there was a bit of wind, and so didn't feel comfortable in that. But obviously with Andrew Goodman being a part of that coaching makeup, brought in a few things from the Crusaders around wet with the footy and going back down. And they actually made a few bends in it and got through our line quite a few times. So it'll be something that we need to shore up. And again, if they can suss out their discipline as well, they had 16 penalties on the weekend, which gave us opportunities to go to our maul where we had parity at scrum times and moments where we were able to relieve pressure. If they can just suss out that a little bit better, then again, that gives them a good opportunity to perform better on the weekend. And again, very similar to us, it's a second week together. They'll be able to be more confident, have a full-on week, not being in COVID, not being limited around the preparation. So the more preparation that they'll have, we're expecting a much better Manu Samoa team come Saturday evening.
How do you calculate 58% ruck speed for the uninitiated? What does that mean?
2 seconds or less. So
Right.
ball carry, clean, ball up, gone.
Gone. So, yeah.
So that's lightning quick ball.
Lightning quick ball.
And if you're in those 60s, high 60s, you're doing really well. Means you're really effective and you're clean.
Ash Dixon, obviously another solid performance from him. Is there a guy in New Zealand rugby, let's say even possibly the history of New Zealand rugby, who hasn't played for the All Blacks, who is that good?
Well, there's an award named after one, the Dwayne Monkley Medal.
The Dwayne Monkley Medal, yeah.
So it might get renamed. No, but it's a hard place to fall into when you're old. You find such great form in your latter part of your career, and he's just got better with age, and his leadership and his, I suppose, respect in groups comes through, and that comes through in his performance and his preparation. We've spoken at length over a number of years now that he's worthy of All Blacks selection. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. I think we even touched on it last week. But you've got Colsey, you've got Cody there, who are world class. Would be in the top 5 of current world hookers. I would say both those. So you've got Asafa Amor, whose game is just growing. He's putting in the reps and doing the business at Super Rugby, and he's done it back-to-back years, and he's that explosive talent, different style of player. If one of your senior guys goes down, because he's probably not going to be able to play that third hooker role.
Yeah.
In terms of Asafa Amor and learning off the older guys and moulding. But if one of the senior guys goes down, I don't think they would be looking away from him at all. I definitely still think there's a reason that you keep depth in players like Ash in this environment, and I know that he's really motivated to represent his culture and that Maori All Blacks team, but I know there would be a deep down hunger to represent the All Blacks, and his performance over the last 2 or 3 years it warrants it, there's no question, but it's just finding the space when there's so many good hookers going around at the moment. But if one of those senior guys fell down at a crucial test match, you could not go wrong with calling him in, because one, he'd pick up game plan really quick. 2, he'd just be really experienced and focus on himself, and no doubt put in a big shift that would do the team benefit, but not only that, himself as well.
Let's say a junior guy goes down. Let's say Amor goes down. Do you then bring in the experienced guy you know is going to be an easy backup? You know, he's not going to do anything wrong? Or do you go, okay, we need to make sure that the third guy is someone for the future?
I just think the fact that it was the two, you know, Colsey and Cody weren't injured, then I think, you know, that third position is more like a mentoring and kind of learning your trait under those two. And I think probably you'd probably want to go with a younger guy, like, you know, Takiaho or a younger guy that's probably trying to show with more potential long-term for rugby in New Zealand. But look, if we, for example, let's just say Ash stayed here for the World Cup 2023 and Colsey or Cody got injured, you know, then those kind of selection headaches I think would be there in a World Cup year. I think when there's something on the line with a guy that's proven at Super Rugby level, even at international level, playing for the New Zealand Māoris for a number of years, I think that's the kind of time that you'd bring in Ash. And you know, if you talk to me, he'd probably want to be the third hooker, and if you've got to play a test match, he'd want to be there. But I think for the sake of what Jip has said, I think they would go a younger guy. There was a younger guy that got injured, like Amor. Amor got injured, you go with the younger player. But if the other two boys, if like Cody Taylor and Dane Coles got injured, like we got into that kind of scenario, then a guy like Ash Dixon, I think would slip in pretty easily. And
absolutely, he wants that third hooker spot. You know, I was in a similar place. Like I was told, you know, they wanted to use it to grow someone, and you know, I was like, let me grow. You know, like of course you want to be in there, but it's not. You got to think as a coach as well. And to Bryn's point. Around a World Cup, I don't think they'd hesitate to bring someone if one of those senior boys went down, because you know he'll deliver. His core skills, I do not think there's a better thrower, and this is going to be huge, but in world rugby, like he is so accurate, like it's freakish.
Yeah, I just want to go on that, Jip. Like, I just want to go on that for like example on the weekend. Like, terrible condition, windy. You couldn't obviously you wouldn't have been able to see how bad it was on TV, but. Yeah, his ball deliveries into that lineup, we talked about it after the game, talking to the locks. They just said, like, you just know every single time that he's going to put it on the money. Doesn't matter if it's wind, hail, or shine. He's going to get it right. So imagine being in a World Cup scenario, you know, where you need to bring in a guy who hasn't played a lot. A guy like that who nails his core, Chip, you know this, as a hooker, landing your core role was a massive part of that. You know, wouldn't have to cushion it. You would not cushion it at all when it came with Ash.
We've just spoken at depth how important lineouts are in attack platforms. Your halfback isn't going to get the ball if you don't win it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. How's the week been, Bryn, down with the Māori team? You're into your second week. It's obviously a very special experience, a very unique and cherished experience within New Zealand and World Rugby.
Yeah, it is, mate. Take away, obviously, COVID last week and the disruptions that we had through the week. But I think for us, it was more so we got to connect as a group together. So, you know, we had a lot of wires, a lot of time to connect with each other. With obviously couldn't go out a lot. So for us, it was a really great opportunity to get to know each other. We were quite lucky that we've got a pretty settled squad, and a lot of us have pretty much played probably the last 2 or 3 campaigns together. So the familiarity with the players is an all-time high. And then, you know, for us, we're in Auckland now, which just seen a bit of sun for the first time in 10 days. So it's been very, very nice for us. And we're looking forward to the challenge on the weekend because I think we felt a little bit, how do I say this? We felt a little bit underdone around with the weather, not being able to express how we wanted to play Māori rugby. We don't get a lot of opportunities to be able to represent our people and represent this team. So for us, it's an opportunity. We want to go out there and put on a performance that for our fans and can represent and show what Māori rugby is about, because like you said, it's a special team to be a part of, and I can speak for everybody in this team. We love being here, and the more opportunities that we do get to be together, it's only going to grow for us as players, but I think for Māori rugby moving forward, which is massive for us moving forward.
So if there was, let's say, a return of the Pacific Nations Cup, would that be the way to go?
Look, I think we've got Tonga playing the All Blacks, Fiji playing the All Blacks, Samoa offered a test against the All Blacks, playing the Maori All Blacks at the moment. I don't think it's about going back to something like that, but if the calendar was too jam-packed and they weren't getting opportunities, then absolutely it's something you look at. But I think there's been a genuine intent from nations and World Rugby to get them, you know, that first division opportunity against teams like the All Blacks, Wallabies, and so forth. So if it was to happen outside of those opportunities, then absolutely, because I think it would be more rugby for our Maori All Blacks and potentially our All Blacks 15 in time. So there will be opportunities and teams to play against. It's just what's right for developing them and their teams and making sure that they're getting stronger as well.
What is the conversation in camp like when you talk about things like this?
Oh, look, we're grateful to obviously have the opportunity. Probably in the last 3-4 years, bar the British and Irish Lions, we've played against Fiji, Samoa, this campaign, but we've had opportunities as well to play like Barbarians 15s and going overseas to Europe when we have the opportunity. So I think for us, we're a competitive bunch. And look, we'd love to play against the top tier nations. Playing Australia would be great, or and England or Ireland. Imagine going over to like a couple of years ago, we played Munster and Limerick. So for us, we love to play against top tier nations and test ourselves against those players and against those kind of teams. And that's no disrespect. We love playing our Island brothers, and every time we play them, it's an awesome encounter. But I think for us as well, we'd love to have an opportunity to be able to play against an England at Twickenham. What an experience for us as a group to be able to do that. So we love both. We love being able to put on the jersey. We love playing against our Pacific brothers, like I said. But at the same time, we'd love to have an opportunity to play against the top tier nations and test ourselves against the best in the world.
Well, all the best maybe against Samoa for this weekend. A double header, I suppose we'd call it, with the All Blacks game against Tonga second up. So, Bryn, thank you very much for joining us once again from somewhere else in the same city. But a very busy working time for Bryn Hall.
Oh, mate, one busy man. You go well this weekend, Brynner.
Cheers, boys.
Thank you to James Parsons. I'm Ross Carl. Thank you very much for joining us on the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. We'll catch you again next week. Don't forget to catch the Maori All Blacks versus Samoa and the All Blacks versus Tonga from Mount Smart this weekend on Sky and RugbyPass.com.